our panel discussion. I would like to now call upon our moderator once again, Mr. Fadli, to begin on the second panel.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, welcome again. To those who just came, welcome. So this is the second session. This is the second panel session with the title of Alternative of Green Energy that are Implementable, which is affordability and availability. So I would like to welcome on stage four of our distinguished panelists. We start off with Dr. Aznan Ezrai Arifin, Chief Solutions Officer, TNBX. And next is Mr. Raymond Chia, Chief Operating Officer, Green Lagoon. The third one will be Mr. Lionel Yap, Head of Secretariat, Malaysian Photovoltaic Industries Association, MPIA. And last but not least, IR Shan Sulaiman, President, Malaysian Small Hydro Industry Association, MASHA. Please give them a round of applause, everyone. Okay, before we start, wow, this is going to be a challenging session after lunch as usual. So I hope that we could engage more with the panels and also the guests. Some things that I would like to update or inform our audience. Maybe I can have one of the young or youth university students perhaps to say what they feel about this morning session. Is there anyone that can probably offer to say something about what they learned or what they found out, or how it's beneficial to them? Any of the young university youth, university students, anyone? What do you think? What do you think about the session this morning? What do you think about the information? Anyone can I get any of you with the green, with the blue shirt? Anyone would like to? Anyone at all? Come on. We would like to hear what the youth has to say, especially about this morning session. Anyone? Oh yes, okay, we'll give you the mic. Yes, your name and where you're from and your feedback. Yeah.
My name is Li Zuxiang.
Yes.
Regarding on I'm from Siam University of Malaysia. Regarding on the session just now, I'm hoping that more relevant question will be asked depend on the session's topic is posted there. So we have more, the objective of discussion will be more relevant and can be achieved.
Okay, thank you. So I've posted it just now. Thank you so much. Alternative of green energy that are implementable. So we'll stick to that question. I think we've discussed also during lunch, at least some of the things that we could discuss. So before we move on to the discussions, I would like each of the panelists to introduce themselves and the background of their area of expertise. So please, Doctor. I will give you a cue, probably a few minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Assalamualaikum, selamat petang. Nama saya Aznan Ezrai Arifin daripada TNBX. We, TNBX, is a subsidiary of TNB, specializing in behind-the-meter business. You may have heard about G-Spark. G-Spark is about renewable energy, and TNBX is about behind-the-meter business. So a lot of confusion about the G-Spark and TNBX and PIA also. What does G-Spark do? What does TNBX do? We do behind-the-meter, but it so happens that the solar rooftop that we are doing are basically behind-the-meter and also green energy. So that's why we overlap. A bit on my background. Okay, I'm in TNBX. They call me Chief something, I don't know. What is it?
So Chief Solutions Officer.
I don't know. They change all the time. So yesterday, I tried to keep to the topic. I told Fadli yesterday, when I start talking, I cannot stop. But I tried to keep to the point. Because yesterday, and you see that my name wasn't there. It was my boss, Mr. Narinder Singh, was supposed to come here. Yesterday, I was happily dozing on the beach at Nosa Beach, Batam. Yesterday, exactly around this time. And the boss called, said, Aznan, can you come back? to replace me for this talk today. So, so I came back and then, and I think the photo I gave you is a picture of me on the beach. So I just gave a picture and then sent it over because they asked for a picture. Okay. So, but I'm pleased to come here. Then I started, yesterday I started to think about what I'm going to talk about. And if those people that know me in TNB, I can talk about many things. I can talk about millennials, I can talk about renewable energy, I can talk about solar. But the topic that I chose, and the topic that was given to me was alternate energy. And I was trying to Google what is alternate energy. So somebody mentioned that be careful about alternate energy because it could mean nuclear energy also. So you can ask me about nuclear energy also. But the thing that I want to tell you today, and it's very pertinent, is about the topic that people normally ignore, dismiss. It's not solar. Solar, everybody wants to speak about solar. Today we had a lot of talk about palm, biomass. But I'm going to talk about something called accommodation of renewable energy to the system. What does TNB have to do to accommodate all this solar energy and renewable energy that wants to come to the system? It's nothing dismissive, it's something that we have to do. Everybody wants to inject solar, everybody wants to do palm, biomass, saying that TNB is making it difficult. I'm here to tell you there are things that TNB has to do to ensure security and reliability of the system. Because solar and all this renewable energy are intermittent and variable. There are things that we have to do and we have to spend on to ensure security, reliability. That's for me. Thank you.
Right. That's a good few minutes. We can move on to Mr. Raymond.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Raymond Chia. I'm the COO and founder of Green Lagoon Technology. Basically, what we have been doing over the years has been, we have always been focusing on the biogas that is released from the palm oil mill. Okay, I'll just give you a very brief background. Okay, when we produce the palm oil meal, when we extract the oil from the palm fruit, there's a lot of wastewater that has to be treated. So when we treat the wastewater, inevitably there is a release of methane gas. So what my company does is we trap the methane gas, we treat the methane gas, and then we put it into the generator and we generate electricity. We have already completed more than 40 projects in Malaysia and Indonesia. All of them are in biogas. My company only focuses on biogas. Recently, we had an opportunity to participate in a project that is non-palm oil based. That's actually leachate water, wastewater from the leachate. That was something new that we have tried. In future, we hope to be able to also go into other types of wastewater. But the main aim is what can we do with the biogas? Now, obviously, the FIT is the low-hanging fruit. It's the easiest to do, and it's generally well accepted, especially by the bankers. Any bankers here, by the way? None. That's what I always don't like, because I've been speaking in many conferences and always the bankers don't turn up. So if the bankers don't turn up, they don't know what's happening in the industry, right? We are in the industry and we need bankers to be here to listen to people like us so that we can actually engage with them and they can see what are the potentials in, it could be biogas or it could be the renewable industry, but it could be in any other industries. So, okay, anyway, since the bankers are not here, then I can taro them today.
Let's keep it cordial. It'll be live on Facebook, so among us it's okay.
Okay, since TNB people are here also, and I'm in TNB University, maybe we also go into some of the issues that we have faced in the past. Obviously, I do agree that TNB has done a lot to help the industry, especially for people like us. Biogas in palm oil, we are actually in very, very remote places where TNB connection is could be none or very intermittent. So thank you to TNB for assisting us throughout the years. So like I said, we have been involved in many projects. Some of the projects we own, where we invested in the projects, and some we are the EPCCs, we are doing the EPCC, or we are the consultants. So later as we go on, we will continue to talk a bit more about the biogas industry.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Raymond. Mr. Lionel?
Okay, good afternoon. No. Yeah, I know. It's that time where everyone kind of knocks off. Okay. My background is I'm a mechanical engineer. I've been in the solar industry for the last 12 years. That means I was in this industry before it became hip and happening. We were in this industry before it is all the big flashy things you saw just now. So we've seen it grow from nothing to where it is today. What we focus on are what we call about, you can call about 3 Ps lah, that my association, I represent the Solar Association, MPIA, for Malaysia. And what we focus on is 3 Ps. One is policy. Policy you saw up there already, 20% by 2025. Then we talk about programs, feed-in tariff, net energy metering, self-consumption. And then the last P, which is usually what, and I totally agree with Raymond, why the bankers should be here. The last P is pocket. Your pocket and our pocket. Because I represent the industry and these people are here to do business. How you can save money, how we can make money, so everybody is happy. Okay? So, we'd like to keep it cordial and open as much as possible. I have a few comments about what was said earlier about TNB. As much as we are appreciative of their accommodating us, there is still a lot of education to be done, and there's still a lot of things that need to be carried forward at a faster pace. And these are all very boring technical things, but if you have this is, in this particular university, you'll be looking at these technical things. And these are the things that we can actually step forward and move faster. Our minister has set a very aggressive target. As far as the solar industry is concerned, we are keen to make that target happen. But there are certain obstacles and there are certain challenges in our way. And we hope that with our continual dialogue with the authorities as well as with TNB, we'll be able to accelerate this process. Please keep the questions coming afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Aisha.
Okay, Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera, and good afternoon. I'm Ishan bin Sulaiman from MASHA, Malaysia Small Hydro Industry Association, the president. So I was with something like Dr. Aznan. I'm formerly from LLN, TMB, those days. 1983, that was what, 20, somebody can do the maths for me. So I started with a small hydro. So I was in small hydro in TMB. Those days, it's not a sexy industry, but that time, in point in time, government tried to do a lot of what you call bakaran elektrik luar bandar, BELP. So one of the key components for off-grid are the micro hydro. So we were there before, about 20 something years ago. But what I would like to insist is that, highlight you is that one of the earliest IPP in Malaysia, the earliest, 1905, 1905, KL was powered by one small micro hydro plant in Gombak, 700 kilowatt, supply KL, and it's a DC, not AC, DC. And kemudian, subsequent, it was supplemented by a battery storage. That was 1905. They already talk about battery. So battery is not new. If you look at World War I, there is submarine, and that submarine are powered by battery when they submerge. So battery is not new. Of course, maybe those technology are lead acid. So my technology, small hydro, is a rather what you call matured industry. Have been around more than 170 years. But of late it's coming back again. Another small hydro scheme was completed 1927 in Sepam, Sungai Sepam, Raub, feeding into a gold mine, Raub gold mine. So the power plant still exists. You can still go there and see the old machine, the old powerhouse, wooden powerhouse, and currently I think TMB has rehabbed it and still running. So renewable energy is not new in Malaysia, has been around more than 100 years. Well, of course, when cheaper oil was found, gas, it went a bit digress, diminished, but then of late, it coming back into the mainstream, because of the awareness, because of climate issue and so on. So, we'll talk further on it. That's my background. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you so much. I will start with the first question for Dr. Aznan. What is TNB most robust initiative at the moment in the area of alternative energy, and what are the challenges it faces? And perhaps you can also share about what you want to share with the audience.
Thank you, Fadli. That was a plant-up question anyways. don't ask me about bills or higher bills or anything. You ask the MB at your station. I don't know anything about your bills. So the question was about the MB's plan, wasn't it? Okay. Okay. We know the incoming the new government came in and set a target. First, it was 20% for 2030. You notice that it was 2030 before, then shifted to 2025. So we know that renewable energy is coming. It's been there. We had LSS before the new government scheme, so it's coming in. Plans, okay, and then the new minister came in. And TMB, for the record, are fully supportive of the RE plan or program targets by the government. Put it on record, okay? Read my lips. TMB is very supportive of the 20% targets set by the minister. So, but we know as engineers, we have to do proper planning. We have to prepare the grid for what's coming in. Because solar, it has been mentioned many times, and you should know this as students, that they are variable and intermittent. Okay, they're not fixed. Okay, unlike conventional power plant, you can set conventional power plant, Mr. Leong, okay, it's 100 megawatts fixed. Okay, and you can run it, dispatch it. Dispatch, you mean you can order it. I want 100 megawatts from that coal power plant, running 24 hours. But solar doesn't come to 24 hours, right? And it's dependent on cloud cover, shading. Okay, and then of course, if they are long distance, you have to prepare for the reactive power, something that you learn in Circuit 101, which is power factor, you know, reactive power. There are a lot of technicalities in it. It's not just the business case. We can talk about business case for the whole day. But then, technicalities, and so we have to prepare the grid. So if you are planting LSS, 50 megawatts or 100 megawatts, down deep, very long transmission lines, you have to prepare for that transmission lines, and you have to prepare something called reactive power to accommodate the power. So this argument about, and then I prepared something about, I don't want to go into details, but the things like if people who run, you know, large-scale power plant, the problem, intermittency, is intermittent. When the cloud covers, the whole 50 megawatt goes down the drain. Okay, the whole 50 megawatts. Of course, people will argue that if you have a lot of things, a lot of solar installation around the country, therefore you have probability you will not have downtime solar for a long period of time. But still, if there are cloud covers, then the grid goes down. Then we have to replace. We have to have backup power. TMB power plants or IPP power plants have to come in to replace this power. And we know that we designed the conventional power plant as a stable power plant. This is not a peakers. They are conventional. Why do we design for conventional power plant as in base load? Because they are cheap for you. And we can debate about coal. Why coal before? Coal is cheap, dirty, but cheap. Malaysians want cheap electricity, therefore we buy coal. And of course coal, gas, renewable, we have to have diversification. I personally, for the record, not on behalf of TMB, is against 100% renewable. Because you need to have diversification. Okay, you need to have backup power. So intermittency is a problem. Therefore, we have to design not just conventional power plant, because if you do not know, conventional power plants like coal, once you dispatch them 24 hours, you hardly can go ramp up and down, because these people are expensive and they are like dinosaurs. Once you stop them, you cannot start them up. They take hours to start up. There's ramp up and ramp down, and these are expensive operations for power plants. And also ramping up, the problems of ramping up, frequency stability. If you learn about power systems 101, when you have solar, it doesn't have inertia. It doesn't have rotating mass. I see people are smiling here because you understand what I'm trying to say. Because you learn circuit theory, okay, when you have a big power system, you have inertia, rotating mass. So if any power plant or solar goes down, you need to have that mass that stores energy comes in to replace the power. Solar, when it drops, you need to have that rotating mass. And when you have more solar, you lose that rotating mass capability. Imagine you have all solar, you no longer have elasticity in the power system. Of course, people can argue with technology, with battery technology, but it's not as good as rotating inertia, and that's physics. And then, of course, voltage stability. I can talk about mass, but voltage stability. So, these are the things which are important, and I hope students take note of that. It's not just we want RE, we want RE, we want RE. Yeah, everybody wants it. I want it too. But then you have to prepare, you have to condition in the grid, and this is not just technical issues and problems, it's also cost. And who bears it? Us. Not TNB, I mean the customer bears it. So that's, I would say, my first take on, robustness of the grid and preparation that TNB does to prepare the grid for more penetration of solar and also other renewable energy.
So, this is quite a big topic, yeah. So I want to ask Mr. Lionel, just moving on from what Dr. Aznan has mentioned, from the point of view of the industry, right, the association. So do you think that it's an affordable or is made available for the industry to participate in this partnership or in this system with TNB?
Well, the first thing you have to bear in mind, those of you who are students here, we appreciate the history lesson. Everything that was said is 100% true 20 years ago. All right, it's true. But it is true. Everything that was said is true. Let me be very clear about this. It is true. However, what you may have heard this morning is very different. If you talk about large power plants, yes, totally agree. But if you look at where the industry is going, it's not that. We are looking at rooftops. We are looking at power in situ. We are looking at power on site. We're not looking at stuff that's happening 10 miles away, 15 miles away. We are talking about decentralization. In fact, thank you for the video that was playing up there. Right? Decentralized, deregulated. Those are their words, TNB's words, not mine. But for that to happen, what are we looking at here? If you look at large power plants, absolutely true. These are things that need to be taken into account because they are transmitted over hundreds of kilometers, right? But if you have power on site, that's different. Battery technology, I agree, is expensive for now. But let me just point out to you, and I always say this, don't believe me. Ask Mr. Google. Check out the price of battery trends. One of the people, well, this is going live, then I'll just say, Bloomberg, you guys really need to get your numbers correct because you keep predicting forward and then you keep pulling back the date of when the prices will drop. Because they're dropping a lot faster than we think. I'm happy about that, but that also creates a whole bunch of problems. To be fair, what I would like to say on record is where TNB has really, really pulled out all the stops. When the FIT first started, and this is, because it's live, I want to say this. At the end of 2012, TNB technicians on the ground technically had all their leave cancelled to make sure the FIT ran according to schedule. You got to give credit where credit is due. These technicians basically just with a coke and a smile said, "Macam tu lah bang, I have to go and get it done." And they got it done. Our association sent them a letter of commendation. Above and beyond the call of duty. These are technicians, leaves were cancelled to make this happen. So for that, I give them credit. What we need now is on the regulation side, technology side, monitoring, grid management. Somehow, when you look at what is what you're studying in your textbooks versus the technology out there, there is a disconnect. And that disconnect is where a younger generation has to step in and make it happen. The grid today, we inherit a very stable grid. But what got us here won't get us there. It's plain and simple. Affordability. When I started my business, I'm no longer in business anymore because I'm full-time with the association. 3 kilowatt system, I kid you not, 3 kilowatt system. Anybody want to hazard a guess how much a 3 kilowatt system costs when I started? 2004. Close to 100,000 ringgit. 3 kilowatt, you buy the cheap genset, it's cheaper and faster. Today, 3 kilowatt, 100,000, Today it's 10,000. People will still say it's expensive. Is it? I don't know. Is it? So what are you comparing it to? We talk about traditional energy for oil and gas. What kind of subsidies do they get that they are not telling you about? That's why it's so cheap. And when I speak this, it is general. It is not Malaysian thing. You got ICPT. There. What about outside of that? Where does your tax dollars go?
One example is ICPT, but of course, the NBA has been receiving it. Talking about subsidized. Yeah, the NBA is receiving ICPT. So what actually is their cost for fossil fuel, for power generation?
Oh, very good. Kan?
Yeah.
Anybody want to hazard a guess? I don't know that number because I'm not in TNB. Right.
Yeah, probably can answer that after, during the, but that's thanks for the question. Yeah.
So in a nutshell, this is what we're looking at here. We're talking about, are we going to give 20th century solutions or mindset for 21st century challenges? Is that the way we're going to think? It's a question that I want to pose back, not because I have the answer. It's because it is brand new. Malaysia has not come this way before. But I believe as a country, we have the opportunity to lead this region. This is where I'm coming from.
Okay, thank you. So to Mr. Raymond, just moving again from this topic of the energy and also for IR Shan. So we talk about especially solar panel that is mainly the leader in this industry, about biofuel and about you mentioned that it's 120 years old technology, right?
Oh yeah, no problem. I mean,
yeah. So
hydro
what you say that you hope that is going to make a comeback. Is it because of why would you say that? Like why the trend went down from that point?
Okay, maybe I could relate there because early on we have quite a number of hydros, yeah, especially small hydros back in the 20s, 30s. Those are up and running, but then of course fossil fuel get very cheap, yeah, and faster to implement. So bear in mind, getting a hydro power plant, though the plant factor is very high, as a comparison, just a comparison. A solar power plant, the best, I believe, correct me wrong, Lionel, the plant factor, yeah, maybe around 15 to 20% plant factor, yeah. That's the industry. Wind, maybe around 40. Thermal, because you can buy the fuel, maybe 85, 95%. Hydro, just depending on the resources, is about 70%. And hydro turbine is the most efficient, one of the most efficient machine converting the raw energy into power, almost 90%. So hydro, as a renewable energy, is great. But then getting hydro power plant on stream, that's the hurdle. Yeah. Easily getting the permit, because water is state prerogative. Getting the permit from the state, we call it state consent. Sometimes it take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, there's some 3 years. With that permit, then we can only go to Tenaga to do our system study, and then we can apply for SEDA. So just getting permit will take us 3 years, and getting it done, because we are working in very rural area, that will take another 3 years. So I have some PPA signed in 2016, still construction, yeah, 2018, 19. So we have a very long gestation period, and this is one of the issue. Maybe later we raise about the hurdle in getting the target for renewable energy, mini hydro in that context. Yeah. So mini hydro is there, the capacity is there. We are just next to solar in the ranking of RE, but then getting them on time, the cost is not that expensive relatively. Plant factor is good. But getting them completed on time, yeah, really takes an effort. Yeah. So there are certain projects that we sign PPA, we don't really know we can get the COD because of all these regulatory issues, yeah, getting permits and so on. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Raymond. Probably same question. Like, what is your point of view on, biofuel as an alternative to the
Okay.
green?
For me, I'm a strong believer of taking energy, the source of energy, from where you are. You go 10 minutes outside of Unit 10, the first thing you will see is estates, palm oil estates, everywhere you go, right? So that becomes the resource or a source of renewable energy, whether biogas or biomass. Obviously, I'm in biogas. Earlier this morning, we had Dato' Leong, who's in the biomass. Of course, there are people who actually still make a mistake between biogas and biomass. Still, they can't differentiate the two. But we are in biogas. But nonetheless, right, we look at the resources that we have. And in Malaysia, palm oil is the most. Palm oil contributes 6 to 7% of our GDP. Right? Palm oil is a main economic driver to not only the country, but to the people in the country. So I think to embark on renewable energy projects for the things that we have, it makes sense for us to focus on the palm oil industry. I'll just give an example, right? If you've ever been to the North Sea, countries bordering the North Sea, if you wear a hat, you're going to lose your hat because the wind continues to blow non-stop, right? If you are in a desert, you get nothing but sunlight for 12 hours. And, or if you go to China, in a lot of regions, they plant millions and millions of hectares of corn. So corn becomes when they cut it off, then that becomes the biomass. So you got to know what we have in our country. And in Malaysia, biogas from the palm oil, I should start with just the palm oil in itself, becomes the driver for a lot of our renewable energy potential. It has been said before, right? If we take all the palm oil waste to generate electricity, we can go up to, I think I was told it could be up to 3 gigawatts of electricity. But we are not harnessing or we're not capturing it for whatever reasons, right? And again, the remoteness of some of these locations cause it to be not viable to connect. We were once involved in a project that can generate 3 megawatt. Okay, for biogas, we are very small. We are not the 150 megawatts. So we are the 2 or 3 megawatt kind of thing. Yeah. So we are small, right? So we cannot be connecting to the grid that is 50 kilometers away. We can't. In fact, anything above 3 kilometers, we would have a lot of voltage loss, especially at 11 kV. Yeah, so we have that disadvantage. But moving forward, and this has been a concept that has been spoken about, and many people have actually written about it. I actually know the person who wrote the paper that, if you look at, for example, the state of Sabah, it has 126 palm oil mills. But their renewable energy in terms of the capturing the captive renewable energy right now is so immense. But if you look at the SEDA website and you put Sabah, they hardly have, I don't think they have more than 20 megawatts. So the question is, why? Right? And like I said, so the paper has been written and said that, look, if you install a dedicated grid through the major palm oil hubs, palm oil estates and palm oil mills, and you get all these palm oil mills to actually inject to that dedicated pipe, dedicated cable transmission, every palm oil mill can give you about 10, 15 megawatt. The word you want to use is what? Consistently, right? Yeah, the firm energy, yeah. And Sabah is just an example. And I think you look at some of the hubs you look at the main palm oil hubs in Johor State, for example, you can easily group 5 to 10 palm oil mills together, and you can put one dedicated cable and we can get electricity. So what I'm trying to say is that the opportunities are there, and it just needs an agency or someone to say, look, I will invest in the cable. If you are selling renewable energy, I'll charge you a toll, kind of thing, a system where you can actually harness. And in that same way, the solar people and the other people can also come in. You know, once we have a dedicated grid line. So I think the opportunities in Malaysia is fantastic. We are just not harnessing it enough.
Okay.
Maybe I could add up to our latest speaker, but talk about this, what you call a biogrid. Okay. Currently, about last month, there was this conference, not conference, industry workshop, yeah, under SEDA, under MESTI, SEDA, and we call it GFC, the Green Fund, GFC. So they are putting up some sort of fund, yeah, totally dedicated to one of their key projects. Is this called biogrid, yeah. So whereby they will subsidize in 3 and 4 forms, yeah, equity, guarantee of loan, outright grant, and maybe some financing. So some things are in place to assist this so-called biogrid, whereby we can share the resources, be it biomass, biogas, or even hydro. As I related earlier, most of our hydro locations are way in the rural area, way, way. I mean, sometimes I remember we have to go 40 kilometers off-road, yeah. 40 kilometers off-road is fantastic. I mean, it's no joke, yeah. So, and as he mentioned in Sabah, there's also a lot of hydro potential, but they couldn't be viable because the grid is not there. You just cannot put up because there's no grid. So, we hear that ST, through this Green Fund initiative, yeah, with SEDA, putting up this special fund to finance this sort of project, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I have something to talk about the financing, but before that, something to do with decentralization. Mentioned that TNB has all these big power plants, and there's also issues of connectivity. Like, what do you think, in your opinion, like, can it be decentralized to kind of like make sure that energy is transferred shorter route to avoid loss and also maybe a better cost to it?
That's why TMBX is there.
Okay.
Decentralization.
Okay.
Okay, let me start by decentralization, and we fully support decentralization because losses are lower. And I agree that the best, effective, more efficient use of energy is to be consumed locally. I am always a believer because we as electrical engineer, we know that I square up losses. The more energy has been transferred, the more losses, unless it's DC. The students are smiling, losing a lot of theories. So we support decentralization in the evolution of energy consumers. We treat you, utility, and I'm admitting I'm from utility, TMB, right? We treat you as ratepayers. We give you a bill, you pay. No question asked, right? We give you a bill, complain, you pay. If you do not pay, we disconnect. That's how we treat customers before. Okay, so we want to move from that paradigm because we have competition. And then we want to go into...
It's a good competition.
A good competition. Our competitors are not people like, I'm sorry to quote name, like Malakoff, YTL. These are the local energy players like you guys. Because you are cannibalizing our customers. But we don't mind it. Because for the good of the country, say on the record, so for the good of the country, okay, we support because there are less losses. Energy, we know that resources consumed locally are best, more efficient, lower losses, etc., etc. So I'm talking about ratepayers, and then we treat you as consumers. Then if you have solar, you become prosumers. You may have heard prosumers, and a term that I recently learned, that if you have solar and battery, you become prosumer, because you store solar, and then you theoretically can disconnect from utility. You can disconnect from utility, literally. Because if you have battery storage and solar, you can store, by clever algorithm, you can store energy during the day, and then at night you store, you can disconnect from TMB, right? And we encourage that. And then even more so, people today, Dr. Winnie mentioned about peer-to-peer, and there's a word called peer-sumer, meaning that you have access, you sell to your neighbor somewhere. So this disconnect, and then after that prosumer, what's the last one? When you totally disconnect from utility, you become non-sumers. You're no longer consumers, you are non-sumers. And we are all for it. We are all for it because these are the best way efficiently to consume resources locally. And this is the whole gamut of decentralization. And we see that coming. We see it is coming. It is, we want to build less transmission lines. Nobody likes transmission lines, right? Those are ugly animals, right? I don't like substations. I'm an electrical engineer. I've never been inside a substation for 20 years. I have this theory that it will cause me cancer. It's my theory. Okay, but it doesn't. Okay, so I've never been inside the substation for 20 years. I don't like them. I think those are ugly infrastructure. We want to get rid of them, but it cannot go abruptly. It has to be there for backup, for reliability purpose. Solar is still intermittent without battery. Okay, there's not much flexibility. I come to the word flexibility later. So, all guys here, you guys here, we support decentralization, digitalization, all sorts of these we support. Okay, so but then in order to do that, you cannot disconnect immediately. You have to plan over the years. The minister also was clever enough to say that in 2025, it's 20%. I was told, I'm not sure it's true, she wanted faster. But TMB, we all, MPIA, moderated, they came to our side. No, you cannot do it now, you have to do it slowly. In terms of decentralization, there are things that we are doing, and then there's things about, even for small scale, the liner was correct, we have to do proper energy management system. You know, one of the case that we discovered, these local solar installers, once they install solar, their power factor has gone down. Because they have a lot of reactive power that they consume. Because solar have inverters, right? So inverter, they need reactive power so that they can convert DC to AC electricity. Okay, they consume reactive power, power factor goes down. I have a customer coming complain to me, you, Aznan, you told me to install solar to save energy, my bill go up. Why? Why? Because he loses on power factor. Once he save on savings on energy kilowatt hour, but he consume kilowatt, he pays TMB, power factor charges. The bill goes up even more before than solar. So these are the understanding that we have to tell the customers. You install solar, you have to be careful. Tell your vendor, check the inverter setting. Okay, make sure that it doesn't disturb the system. You may have other things like overvoltage, causing overvoltages on your neighbors. These are local issues. But TMB is well aware about it. We are developing, improving the grid code, the distribution board, the connection guidelines. I was in the distribution code improvement workshop last week, but it takes time. So we ask for patience because we don't want customer to lose out, because in the end it's TMB. If you lose power or you go power factor high, you blame TMB, right? You wouldn't blame the solar vendor, right? You blame TMB. TMB apa ni? Over voltage. Apa TMB ni? Power factor high. So what I'm trying to say that in the process of decentralization, it will take time, because and we cannot just say that if Kampung A is no problem, Kampung B surely no problem. No, these are local condition dependent. Local A may have their own generation. They have reactive power a lot circulating there, so no problem. But Kampung B doesn't have reactive power, doesn't have a capacitor, so they have voltages problem. So that's why we have to be careful, step by step. All we are asking is that bear with us, because these are technical problems that we have to do, we have to overcome.
Okay, so probably have one more question. So, just you can add on.
Relate to Dr. Adnan, because I remember when we did our small micro hydro back in 1984, those days. So those days, the nation is electrified, but then end of the line, this voltage was very bad. So we had one particular power plant, very small, 200 kilowatt, 16 kilometers away in the jungle, a mini hydro. But then those days we try to do new things. So we have an induction motor and synchronized. So maybe this is a bit technical. Maybe you student could pick up different synchronous. It's cheaper, but then it has no problem. So those days, there's yet to be some sort of standard, so it's more try error. So there was a tripping somewhere. The tripping occurs at the power plant, at the TMB side, but the power plant doesn't trip, because the very long cable is feeding into the cable. So this is the issue that can happen, and I quite encourage say that TMB has been improving it and training it, but certain technology, needs some sort of proper technical guidelines, standards, so that we don't lose money or life for that matter, So just make it TMB trip, but power plant doesn't trip. So it's a very unique issue, but it's a just in case. But, thank you.
Just want to make a comment on this thing about what Doctor mentioned earlier on. It's true. All this kind of stuff happens. Part of the reason why, one of the requirements, and these are standards and guidelines set up by the for net energy metering and things like that. These are guidelines that have been set up. The problem isn't so much that these guidelines are not there. The problem is access to data which should be made public. Because independent engineers can do the analysis faster than TNB. Doctor mentioned earlier on. It's true. Oops, inside thoughts. But it's true. Because, it's true. It's on a commercial level. For TNB, if they take their time with the power supply study, there's no loss to them, honestly. But for a commercial, independent, consulting engineering firm, if you are slow, you lose money. Plain and simple. What we need is access to the data. And that data access will help prevent the exact situations the doctor has described. This is important for us from an industry point of view. The deregulation part doesn't just come from part of opening up the retail side of the business, which is what is going to allow P2P to happen. It has to open up. In other words, data has to be made transparent, be made available. Because one of these days, those of you who are studying here, I don't think all of you want to end up working for TNB for the rest of your life. It's a great training ground. Make no mistake. As I mentioned, the technicians on the ground are some of the best you will ever meet. They know their stuff, because if they don't, they die. And I say this with a hint of seriousness because it is true. They know their stuff extremely well. And I say that with much respect, because I'm scared when I see some of the things they do, and they do it calm, such as slumber, but they're extremely careful. Some of you may decide to go to the private sector, and then you'll discover that life is not so rosy. What we're looking at here, when we talk about deregulation, we're also looking at deregulation of the retail side of the business. Business models aside, talk about intermittency. Does anyone here want to hazard a guess what is the penetration rate of solar right now into the grid? The concerns are real, but the concerns are real at a rate which I believe Suranjaya Tenaga has mentioned at 20%. I think at most 30%. At most 30%. At 30%, this will become a serious issue. What is the penetration rate of now solar in this country? Anyone want to try a guess? Does anyone here want to hazard a guess? Hint, it's less than 10%. Right now, into the grid. No takers? The concerns are real, but the concerns 2%. Are real. You're very generous. Which I believe Suranjaya Tenaga has mentioned. At 2%, his estimate is very generous. I'm embarrassed to give you the number because it's so low. At 30%. So the intermittency issue that we're talking about is real. Make no mistake, it is a real issue. It is not an issue yet that we need to address so quickly. If we want to ramp up, then let's ramp up and not delay. Because there are a lot of things that industry cannot do. It is held by grid owners, it is held by the grid custodians. Right? And that will make a difference.
Okay. So actually our 45 minutes is up. Yeah, it's up, but it's quite fast. But I think
Thank you.